It's good that as always you come into the meet with a good number of participants to start with. For today, we're going to look again into analogy. This time we will dive into another way that we can utilize analogy as a rhetorical device. Before we have our major topic for today, let us first check if you can see through the following song lyrics. So we'll have an activity first. Let us see if the message has literal. When you say literal, the words have their dictionary meaning, or maybe the song lyrics have a figurative meaning. What does figurative mean? That means the words have a hidden meaning aside from their true meaning or true dictionary meaning. So as I sing the lines, try to evaluate if the language in the song has literal or figurative meaning. Do not be shocked with my singing talent, okay? When I say go, you are to type the word literal or figurative in the chat box. Let's have the first one. It's been 10,000 hours and 10,000 more. Oh, if that's what it takes to learn, sweetheart of yours. Go. The correct answer is figurative. Let's have the next one. There's a time that I remember when I never felt so lost, when I found all the hatred was too powerful to stop. Go. The correct answer is literal. Okay, so the words here are true to their dictionary meaning. Let's have the next one. I'm like a shooting star, I've come so far, I can't go back to where I used to be. Go. And the correct answer is figurative. Let's have the last one. Life is sweet as honey. Yes, this bitch cha-ching like money. Huh. Go. And the correct answer is figurative. I hope you aced that activity. Again, literal language is when the words that we use are true to their dictionary meaning. On the other hand, figurative language is when words are assigned with a different meaning as used in written works. Moving forward, let us have a quick review of the figures of speech you may have met before, starting with simile, metaphor, and personification. When you say simile, it is comparison of two different things using the words like or as. As an example, we have I am like a flower and I am as pretty as a flower. So the two different things being compared here is a person and a flower. Let's have the next one. For metaphor, It is a direct comparison. The examples are, I am a flower and he is a clever monkey. Notice that instead of using the words like or as, we use be verbs. In the following sentences, am and is are the be verbs used in the metaphors. Personification, on the other hand, is giving human attributes to non-human beings. As an example, we have the sentence, the wind complained. Complained is an action that is exclusive to humans, while the wind is a non-human being. So that is personification. To check on how much you remembered through our review of the three figures of speech, play, fact or bluff. Type in fact if the statement is correct and type in bluff if it is wrong. Let's have the first one. She is a fierce lioness. The example above is a personification. Fact or bluff? That statement is a bluff. What word should we use to replace the word personification? That's right. It should be metaphor. Let's have the next one. The dog is like his coffee in the morning. This is an example of a personification. Is it a fact or a bluff? That is also a bluff. What word should replace personification in this statement? That's right, it should be simile. Why should it be simile? Of course, we saw the word like being used in the comparison. How about the third one? The ants had a meeting. The statement is a metaphor. Fact or bluff? That statement is also a bluff. What word should we use to replace metaphor? That's right, it should be personification. We are down to the last set of review materials. In this part, we are to try to see how irony, oxymoron, and paradox differ from each other by making sense of the examples. Let's have the first one. For irony, the example is, it is not obvious that you like her. You did not just give her flowers, right? What do you think is irony? Anyone? Okay, so when we say irony, we tell the opposite of the thought that we have. It is kind of close to sarcasm. Have you used sarcasm before? Let's move on to the next one. Oxymoron. This is an example of oxymoron. The unlimited budget that they have is in question. Highlighted are the words unlimited budget. Does this make sense? Unlimited, but it's a budget. When we say budget, it should be limited, right? Well, oxymoron is actually a figure of speech wherein two words with contradicting meaning are placed side by side. Let's have the third one, paradox. The examples are to bring peace, we must war, and less is more. Does this statement make sense? Well, paradox is actually logically self-contradicting statements. That's why it would seem wrong at first, but when well thought of, the statement has actual validity. Okay? Those are some of the figures of speech you should get acquainted to. Yes, that was just a review. We can now go back to analogy. When we try to explain or describe something, we often get inclined to making comparisons. That is, we relate this unfamiliar thing to another one that is more common and widely known. One that has similar characteristics as the unfamiliar one, so that people can understand us easily. Let us try to concretize our view of life by observing how it can relate to a tree. Let's compare the two by explaining the following points of similarities. We have growth, flexible, roots, beauty, and change. Growth. How will you say that growth is a common factor between tree and life? Would anybody like to share? Like trees, in life we grow and achieve maturity as time passes by. How about the word flexible? How is the word flexible similar to both tree and life? Like trees, we have to be flexible in life so that we do not stumble even in the hardest blows of wind or problems. How about the word roots? How does the word root come to be related to both tree and life? Our roots in life, just like trees, should be stable and deep so we do not get easily swayed by different influences. How about the word beauty? Our life, just like trees, has its own natural beauty which we should appreciate. And lastly, we have the word change. How is the word change applicable to both tree and life? Life is like a tree. We get new leaves as the old ones fall. There is change in those who keep us company. We lose some and we gain some. I suppose that at this moment you already have a hint on how analogy is used as a rhetorical device. Let us now proceed to a diagnostic exercise in order for us to know where exactly you are in today's topic. For learning task 1, you are to read, examine, and classify the sentences as the simile, metaphor, or analogy. You are to access the Google form link sent in the class GC. You will be given 3 minutes to finish this task. When your time runs out, you have to share your score in the chat box. Your time starts now. Time's up. Type in your scores in the chat box so that I can check if you did well. Oh, if you remember your answers in our Google form, number 1, he is as thin as a stick. This is a simile. Number 2, life is like a bag of candies. You never know what you're going to get. That is an analogy. Number 3, life is a wonderful journey. That is a metaphor. Number 4, this problem is a death sentence. That is also a metaphor. Number 5, teaching students requires the same passion you would give to plants in a garden. Nurture them, care for them, let them experience both light and dark. Soon, they will grow and bloom like you expect them to be. That is an analogy. And lastly, her smile beams like the sun. That is a simile. Yeah, I hope you did well. Let's see these kids giving you a standing ovation. Let's move on to learning task 2. wherein you are going to identify which of the statements are true about analogy. So in the Google form link, you are to choose go if the statement is correct and no if it says otherwise. The time allotment for this task is 3 minutes. As soon as you finish, please type in LT2 done. Time starts now. Time's up. So I hope everyone already sent their LT2 done. Let's reveal the answers. For number 1, analogy can show comparisons between unrelated things. That is a go. Analogy is just another term for simile. That is a no. Analogy can be used to explain a point. Go. Number 4, some analogies compare relationships. Go. And number 5, analogy can be used to describe unfamiliar concepts. That is also a go. So the only no here is number 2. Please type in your scores in the chat box. Good work, Lavender. We are now on to the discussion proper. An analogy is a literary technique that involves comparison of how two things are alike, but with the ultimate goal of making a point about this comparison. Analogy is not a figure of speech. It is a rhetorical device used to make rational arguments and support ideas by showing connections and comparisons between unlike things. The main function of analogy is not just to show, but also to explain or justify. Meanwhile, simile and metaphor only aim to show without providing clear descriptions or explanations. In that sense, analogy is more complex in nature than figures of speech. Look at how simile, metaphor, and analogy differ from each other through these examples. All the comparisons are focused on tree and life. In simile, it is presented in the statement, life is like a tree. The word like is used. In metaphor, it is stated as life is a tree. It is a direct comparison. In analogy, the statement goes as, life is just like a tree. It starts from a seedling that grows into a full-grown tree that has trunk and branches that make itself strong and bears wonderful fruits. The comparison was justified as the one comparing gave concrete explanation on how the two different concepts are alike. In simile, metaphor, and analogy, there is comparison, yes, but in analogy, the comparison is being justified and explained thoroughly. Here are the two types of analogies employed in writing. First, we have analogies that identify identical relationships. This type of analogy takes the form A is to B as C is to D. Remember our first quarter topic? It is often used directly to illustrate similar relationships between two pairs of words for the purpose of logical argument. As an example, we have English is to language as mathematics is to arithmetic. The example above vividly shows the connection between English and language and mathematics and arithmetic. English is basically a subject that focuses on language, while mathematics deals primarily with arithmetic or numbers. More examples: nose is to body as branch is to tree, where both pairs are related as part to whole. The nose is a part of the body and the branch is a part of a tree. Next, we have German Shepherd is to dog as Persian is to cat, where both pairs have breed or kind as relationship. German Shepherd is a kind of dog and Persian is a kind of cat. The second type is analogies that identify shared abstraction. This form of analogy compares two things or concepts that are technically unrelated in order to establish a connection between a characteristic that they share. This type is common and useful in writing because it can make abstract ideas and concepts more concrete. For our example, we have what soldiers do for the country, white blood cells do inside the body. In the given example, the abstract concept of how white blood cells function in the body is made clear by explaining that they protect everything inside, like how the soldiers perform their sworn duty to protect their country. Another example: raising children is like gardening. Nurture them and be patient. This example compares the pattern that is similar in both raising children and gardening. The nucleus is the cell's CPU. It is the control center of the basic unit of life. The function of the nucleus is made known by comparing it to a CPU or a computer's central processing unit, which is functioning as the brain of the computer. Every person you meet is like the number line. All of us have negative and positive sides. History is a teacher. It tells us what to avoid and what to repeat so the future becomes better. One thing that might surprise you is that some even use analogy for pickup lines. Take this example. Are you my appendix? That is like saying, you are like my appendix. Because I don't understand how you work, but this feeling in my stomach makes me want to take you out. This is true most of the time. Excruciating pain is felt in the stomach when a person suffers from appendicitis and it would need surgical operation to take the appendix out. But of course, that is not the case in this pickup line. The words take you out is actually referring to going out on a date. At this moment, I hope you already have a good stand on today's topic because the next learning task will check on that. For learning task 4, you are to complete a table by providing an analogy for each of the given topics or situations. You are to access the Google Form link sent in the class GC. You will have 3 minutes to finish this task. Or if you cannot finish it on time, of course you can accomplish it later. So the 3 minutes starts now. Time's up. For now, let us discuss the performance task for this lesson. The template will be sent in our GC, and of course you are going to download, edit the file to encode your answer, and send the file back to me. So in this activity, you are to read and understand the poem and the template sent to you, and identify the analogy present in the stanzas of the poem. You have to write an explanation on the points of comparison presented in the stanzas. Your work will be scored as it relates to the following criteria. You will get the highest points if in your work you were able to identify the idea or things being compared correctly. You have explained the comparison perfectly, and when your writing or work is presented neatly and can be easily read. You are going to get 5 to 8 points if, again, you were able to identify the things or ideas being compared correctly. You have explained the comparison well, and your work is readable and presentable. Now, you will just be getting 1 to 4 points if there was just an attempt to identify the thing or idea being compared. If there was an attempt to explain the comparison and your work is difficult to read and lacks organization. Do you have any questions? If you don't, I want you to continue these phrases on this. You are going to type in your sentences in the chat box. Just continue the phrases. Today, I learned that analogy is, and it is fun to know that you can choose one of these two and type in your statements in the chat box. Okay, thank you for sharing your thoughts. Remember, learning about how analogies are different from other types of comparisons used in the English language can be confusing. It is important for you to understand how each type of comparison aims to function in sentences and larger units of discourse. Before we leave the GMeet session, you have to finish this quiz. So the link is already in our GC. Once you are done, just tell me by typing in quiz done. After, you can leave the Meet and continue in accomplishing learning task 4 if you have not finished it and start on the performance task. I will be ready to attend to your special concerns through our GC. Time for quiz is 3 minutes and it starts now. And time's up. I hope that you're done with the quiz by now, and I believe some of you already left the Gmeet